Astad Yast. Arstat is truthfulness. She is invoked in company with the genius of truth, Rashnu Razista, on the day of Rashin, 18th, on the day especially dedicated to her, the 26th day of the month. She is invoked in company with Mount Ushe Darena, which accounts for the singular fact that her Yast is wholly devoted to the Havareno, and thus is hardly distinguishable from the Zamyad Yast, as Mount Ushe Darena is the actual seat of the Havareno, whence comes this particular connection of Arstat with Mount Ushe Darena is uncertain, unless it alludes to the fact that the possession of the Havareno can be secured only through truthfulness. As soon as Yima began to find delight in words of falsehood and untruth, the Havareno flew away from him. 0. May Ahura Mazda be rejoiced, and so on. Asham Vohu, holiness is the best of all good, and so on. I confess myself a worshipper of Mazda, a follower of Zarathustra, one who waits the Devas and obeys the laws of Ahura for sacrifice, prayer, propitiation, and glorification unto Havana, the holy and master of holiness, and so on, under the glory of the Aryans made by Mazda, be propitiation with sacrifice, prayer, propitiation, and glorification. Yata ahu va'erio, the will of the Lord is the law of holiness, and so on. 1. Ahura Mazda spake unto Spitma. Zarathustra sang, I made the Aryan glory, rich in food, rich in flocks, rich in wealth, rich in glory, provided with full store of intelligence, with full store of money to withstand need and to withstand enemies. 2. It destroys Engra Ma'inu, who is all death. It destroys Aeshma, the fiend of the wounding spear. It destroys the yellow Bush Yasta. It destroys the contagion of Aeka. It destroys the fiend of death, Apa'asha. It destroys the non-Aryan nations. 3. And I made the great Asha Venguha. She comes in amid the family. She comes in inside the fine royal palace. 4. Let Asha with fullness of welfare follow the man who gladdens the faithful with his gifts. She comes in inside his family. She comes in inside his fine royal palace, with all sorts of flocks, with all victory, with all intelligence, with all glory. Great Asha Venguha puts one foot inside his family. She comes in inside his fine royal palace. 5. Horses multiply 1,000-fold. Flocks multiply 1,000-fold. And so does his virtuous offspring, as the bright glorious star, Titsteria, moves on equally. And so does the strong wind made by Mazda, and so does the glory of the Aryas. 6. And they bring increase on tops of all mountains, down the depths of all vales. They bring increase to all growing plants. The fair, the golden-hued, they bring away the contagion of Aeka. They bring away the fiend of death, Apa'asha. 7. Hail to the bright and glorious star, Titsteria. Hail to the strong wind made by Mazda. Hail to the glory of the Aryas. Yata ahu va'iryo, the will of the Lord is the law of holiness, and so on. Asham vahu, holiness is best all good, and so on. 8. We worship the Ahuna va'irya. We worship Asha Vahista, the fairest, Ameshaspenta. We worship the rightly spoken words, fiend smiting, and healing. We worship the healing, well-spoken words, the fiend smiting. We worship the Matra Spenta and the law of Mazda, and that delights in Ha'ama. We worship the glory of the Aryas, Yenhe, Hatam, all those beings of whom Ahura Mazda, and so on. 9. Yatha Ahu Ba'erio, the will of the Lord is the law of holiness, and so on. I bless the sacrifice and prayer and the strength and vigor of the glory of the Aryas made by Mazda. Hashem Bohu, holiness is the best of all good, and so on. Give unto that man brightness and glory. Give him the bright, all-happy, blissful abode of the holy ones. I say, this term, worship, we mean, we're remembering, we're respecting, we're fully placing ourselves on the side of the scripture, the light beings, the other formulas, the healing processes, the sacred drink, the qualities of divinity, you could say. And we go back again to share some more comments from the Farvardin Yast. And so we are commenting on 128. The 6 foremost helpers of Sa'oshant, each in one of the 6 Karshvaras, it is said that in 57 years, which are the period of the raising of the dead, Roshano Kashem, and Arza, Khur Kashem, and Sava, Fradat Gadman, are Fradat Havareno, Increaser of Glory, and Fradat Afsh, Varadad Gadman, are Varadat Havareno, Multiplier of Glory, in Vidadafsh, Kamak, Vak, Sheshan, Vauru Nemo, Perliving, in Voru Barst, and Kamak Sud, Vauru Savo, Wheel Loving, in Voru Garst, while So Shans, in the illustrious and pure Kavan Eros, is connected with them, are immortal. The completely good sense, perfect hearing, and full glory of those 7 producers of the renovation are so miraculous that they converse from region into region. The first brother and forerunner to Sa'oshant, the Oshadar Ma of later tradition, is Ukshat Areta. The second brother and forerunner to Sa'oshant, the Oshadar Bammi of later tradition, is Ukshat Nema. And Astvat Areta is Sa'oshant himself, whom, the withstanding the evil, he will suppress both the destructive power of the men of the Drug. Idolatry is chief of Drug, but there's more to the lie than that. And the errors of the Mazda Yastians themselves. And just like I say with politics, Fine, vote for this guy. Fine, be mostly on his side. But you know how you really stand with somebody? You oppose their evil and ignorance. So, Va'uru Vathwa. The flocks said his wish. As he made the waters and trees undrying, cattle and men undying. Oh, the death that creeps in unseen against the death. As the inventor of medicine, to address incontinency, because you want to continue, not just in your character. And disease is a poison that's thought to come from the serpent. And so, the moralizing of ailments is definitely a thing that's made its way into the Zoroastrian tradition. And the son of Pa'uru Gira is Ashnara, so full of wisdom. Now, back in the day, all these English names that we don't think have any meaning have meaning. But so, in the Shah Nama, Zab, son of Tahmasp, appears to have been a son of Nodar. So, we have the son of Tumasp. Well, the Shah Nama is much later, so. Eriu is the youngest of the three sons of Thra-e-Ta'ana. He was killed by his brothers and avenged by his son Manus Kithra, who succeeded Thra-e-Ta'ana. Kvata Ka'e Kabad in the Shahnama is an adopted son to Uzava and, so the king of the Holy King Kvata. Okay. Ka'i Apida was the son of Ka'e Kabad. And we're having mention of, the Fravashya of the Holy King Epe Vangu and the Holy King Usadvan, Arshan, Visana, and Vyarshan were the four sons of Epe Vangu. They are called in Ferdowsi Ka'e Ka'us, Ka'e Arish, Ka'e Pashin, and Ka'e Armin. Ka'e Ka'us alone came to the throne. Visathan, Arshan, Visana. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the same note. And the same note. Siavaksh and Khosrav. Are what's listed, the Holy King Siavarshan. And for the King Husrava, our note says the same. And the well-shapen strength, so one's becoming possessed of strength. It's, it develops. And then we have like Fran Gracian. But who is like Fran Gracian? Oh, withstanding the evil done by the oppressors like Fran Gracian. Oh, so he's an example of the oppressors. Okay. And of the Sama family, we have, the Sama. So they're referring to the whole family in verse 136. And Karasaspa killed 9 highwaymen. By highwaymen, they mean highway robbers. So the brigand who works destruction. So they're kind of like the Sodom and Gomorrah of their day, that they'd attack people who went through. And Akrura is not mentioned in the Shahnameh. Khosrav was succeeded by a distant relation, Lohrasp. And a lot of these things, no matter how detailed the lineage is, we're talking thousands of years and stuff like this, so there's stuff left out. So, could mention whole kingdoms, not just dynasties, but whole countries that, you could say that rose and fall. There's an allusion to the lost legend of Akrura. So, in the mention of the deceiving of the friend and the stingy person that causes the destruction of the world, niggard means stingy, not, has nothing to do with a similar sounding word. And Kumbya is one of the immortals in Havaneratha. He resides in the Pesh Yansai plain. He is Havembya for this reason, because they brought him up in a Havemb jar for fear of Kashem. He answers pretty well to the Agastya and Vasistha of the Vedic legend. One of the 3 wives of Zarathustra is Havovi. The daughter of Frasha Astra, she is the supposed mother of Saoshyant and his brothers. So does that mean the final end times savior figure? Does that mean it's going to have some Persian descent? Actually, pretty likely. One of the 3 areas you could say, but that Western Arabian desert individuals, there's more likely to be the anti-Saoshyant rising from there. But there's dispute about where these figures are going to take. The 3 daughters of Zarathustra and sisters to Istvastar are the Pauru Kista. Oh, well, we don't see notes, so Frene, Thrita, and Pauru Kista. Asa is Vistaspa's wife, and Vistaspa's daughter is Huma. Frena, our Garo Vangu, is referred to by Fra Yazanta. Kshatro Kinna is referred to by Ksho Iwur Aspa. Yasts is kshatro. Okay, so we already mentioned of that. And Ukshat Areta's mother, the Sadar Bundahist, calls her Bod for the last part of her name, Fedre for Padre, and states that bathing in Lake Kasava, she will become pregnant from the seed of Zarathustra that is preserved there, and she will bring forth a son, Oshadar Bami. And so in verse 141, we're talking about Srutat Fedre and Vangu Fedre is Ukshat Nema's mother, called Vah-Bod, and the Sadar. She will conceive in the same way as Srutat Fedre. And Saoshant's mother is referred to as Eradat Fedre. And we can look at what some of these things mean and perhaps a little, understand things a little bit different. So we're talking about the Turanian countries in verse 143. And Gogo Sasp is a commentator in the Vesta, saying there are holy men in all religions, as appears from the words Tu Iryanam Da Vyunam. We worship the Pravashis of the holy men in the Turanian countries. And the Sa Evremian countries are the countries inherited by Sa Evrema, Sim, the third son of Thra-e-Ta'ana, as Turan and Iran were inherited by Tura and Aryu. Selm's heritage was Rum, that is to say Europe and Western Asia. Well, part of Europe anyways. And China, the word for China, the Sa-Ene countries, because we're talking about a time when China wasn't united as one country. And what part of what we call China now is only a result of after Genghis Khan and up to, maybe the few generations follow even, well, how quickly people got back things and what was continued to be spread in this area. Not that varied, but what we know is China's bigger even, that includes some of that. And they include some peoples that were part of that system that kind of moved over. It's like the Uyghurs are kind of more into China now, but and the Dahe countries, perhaps the Daha are, as Strabo puts it, Da'ai, called Ta-Hia by Chinese geographers, on the south of the Oxus. That's actually a location that makes the most sense. And so when we're talking about the Gaya Marathon down to the Saoshant, we're talking from the first to the last. But in a way we can look at this, well, the last shall be first talk and some other traditions, that all that stuff that happened before was now, their legacy the later generations, you have to wait till the later generations are kind of done with to really judge the others, because there could be something really little, and it could seem that they've, somebody's lost in life and all that stuff. But then the legacy of what good and truth here and there has just so overwhelmingly built up over the years and whatnot. So maybe their name isn't even known. And of course, but we have the mention of the itinerant priest being received, the Athravans, the Pa Oirio Taka Asas are the people of the primitive law, and those who struggled for holiness. And okay, so we're talking about the law, the Zoroastrian law, of course. The Itika is the Persian for, okay, the souls of the wild beasts and the tame. Nere Asang has those that go by herds. Pan Kete Karin A Ityu, the Pahlavi translation, has a yar, those that are of help, so the domesticated. Nere Asang has misread it as Savar and translated Ach. Vakarin, is it Ach? There's a C, so I'm not sure what you're supposed to pronounce it, but the cha, so Ach Vasarin. Expression da etika aidyu answers to the Persian, meaning all sorts of animals. And animals of help don't refer to what most people call dogs, because most people, their dogs are just their pets. You see these videos of, dogs letting in complete strangers, robbers, instead of chasing away the deer from the garden, the dog leads the deer into the house, and all sorts of stuff that, and dogs are healthier if they've, if they can do some work other than, being your rheumatism dog that you lay over yourself, or whatever. There are people who, I'm not sure the validity of that other than a faith healing thing, but people would put dogs over themselves, and well, certainly might be a comfort, the warmth of the dog in the cold season and all that. And those who shall worship the Favashes, well, those who bring up the memory. By worship we may not. There are people who worship the spirits of the ancestors. There's no doubt about that sort of stuff. But the brightness and the glory, okay, yeah. So if you take part in this memory, if you take part in continuing the legacy, if you're of the same energy, purpose, or whatever you want to call it, then, brightness and glory to you, and all that stuff. And so we move on to the Bahram Yast comment. And Verethragna is what we mean as, the strongest in verse 3. Zarathustra is what meant as said unto him. Remember, a lot of this stuff, it's not that per se necessarily that it's a worship of this or that or the other. It's a recollection or an enactment of the communication between these. And so there's some doubtful readings here. So, Vadar Ois might be the reading of verse. Oh, I'm sorry. Finding those little numbers is sometimes not as easy as I think. With the burden-bearing camel, with the sharp tooth, we might have Dad As O Is, and we might have Ervato with along with the swift. So those dots, Ervato, and tame or domesticated. So living in the abodes of men. That's what we mean. In verse 12, something after large humps, and smarsno, and ha-itahe is the blank whose piercing goes afar, in verse 13. And let us remember one of the signs that it's not really the revelation of the time is that the some of the language can said to be changed. And rushing all around, what's the note with that one? Or better, rushing before. Ervato, pichato, may be twice repeated with something that the raven does below and above. So there's, in verse 19. Well, it would make sense that he's doing the same from above and below. The raven was sacred to Apollo. The priest of the sun in Persia are said to have been named ravens. Porphyrius says that. And V. Gatavo, the hidden ways. Well, isn't in the Quran the story the raven unveils what the brother that kind of didn't do right did? Uncovered the murder, basically. Or, well, wait, no, the scratched at the earth, and the brother got the idea of burying the body. The royal glory is described as flying in the shape of a raven. And we'll leave more of the notes of the Bahram Yast